Hi, I'm Bob Kutschbach, the owner and broker of Carleton Realty, and today we're going to be talking about CAUV, which stands for Current Agricultural Use Value. You see, the government has a program called CAUV for people who farm their land. Now, it requires a certain amount of income to come in every year, but that amount is modest. It's in the neighborhood of $2,500 a year. And that income can come from any type of source in farming. It could come from crops, it could come from livestock, it could come from timbering trees. So it's not a difficult number to reach if you have even a small farm. So CAUV allows for the farmer to get a greatly reduced property tax each year. And it can save thousands of dollars in property taxes. But under a CAUV tax agreement, you sign a multiple year contract, like a 3-year contract, and you agree to farm the property for the next 3 years. The problem is if you stop farming the property, then you owe that tax benefit that you received back for the whole 3 years. So it can be quite a chunk if you stop in midterm of the CAUV tax period. The real issue comes in when the property is sold. So a small farmer sells the farm to someone else. And again, this could be a house on 10 acres. That's categorized as a mini farm. So if you have 10 acres, you probably automatically qualify as long as you generate that income every year. So here's a buyer, buys a house on 10 acres and doesn't decide to continue farming. Well, then there's a recapture tax for the entire period that the contract covered. Now, that recapture tax can become a lien against the property. So when the property is sold, there needs to be an agreement who will pay that recapture tax if it's triggered. The standard contract used in many boards of realtors says that the seller will pay for that recapture tax. After all, the seller has benefited from the lower property taxes. The seller, however, says that's not fair because all the buyer has to do is continue till the end of the period and there'll be no recapture tax. So it could be flipped in the contract where it says that if the buyer fails to register under CAUV, the buyer will then become liable for the recapture. So this is a very important issue in the negotiation of a mini farm, a house with some acreage. It is very important that the buyer, the seller, and the agents identify if this is currently under CAUV. And if it is, we need to carefully structure the contract so it reads fairly for both parties. Now, if a developer is buying the property, then we can understand that the intent is not to continue farming it, and the developer is probably paying the farmer a premium price for the land, so the farmer would have more than enough money to pay that recapture tax. So a lot has to do with who's the buyer, who's the seller, and what is their intended use, and what would be fair. Would it be fair to expect the buyer to continue farming? Or would it be more fair for the seller to just pay the recoupment tax and the buyer have no obligation in the future? If you have any questions about that, please call one of our agents and they'll be glad to help you. Thank you for watching.